In the world of medicine, we're in this constant war against bacteria. And in that war, some of our weapons are held back, saved only for the absolute toughest fights. Today, we're talking about one of those special weapons, an antibiotic called daptomycin. And trust me, this isn't just any old drug. It's one of our last lines of defense.
So, let's just jump right into it with a really important question. We all kind of take antibiotics for granted, right? But what actually happens when they just stop working? When the bugs get so tough that our go-to treatments are completely useless? This is exactly where our story begins. The villains here are what we call superbugs. And no, these aren't some comic book creation. They're very real, incredibly dangerous bacteria that have literally evolved to survive our most powerful drugs. They are, without a doubt, a massive threat to everything we've built in modern medicine.
Now, two of the most infamous superbugs out there are MRSA and VRE. You've probably heard of them. These infections can be deadly, and the reason is pretty simple. They've figured out how to shrug off powerful antibiotics like methicillin and vancomycin. It's because of them that we desperately needed a new kind of hero.
All right, so with the villains on the board, let's introduce our protagonist, Daptomycin. This is not just another antibiotic in the lineup. It's a totally different kind of weapon, one that we actually found out in nature.
So what makes daptomycin so special? Well, it belongs to a class called lipopeptide antibiotics. Let's break that down. Lipo means fat, and peptide means protein. This unique structure, which comes from a soil bacterium, is the absolute key to its power. It's designed to go after a specific group of bacteria called gram-positives, which, you guessed it, includes those superbugs we just talked about.
Every good hero has a secret weapon, right? Well, daptomycin's is its completely unique way of attacking bacteria. This is so important because it means bacteria that are resistant to other drugs are still totally vulnerable to it. There's no cross-resistance because daptomycin is playing a completely different game.
And the secret ingredient that unlocks all this power? Believe it or not, it's something you have all over your body right this second: calcium. Daptomycin is completely dependent on calcium ions to get activated and start its mission. Without calcium, it just sits there, totally dormant. Okay, so here's how it pulls it off. It's a brilliant multi-step attack. First, daptomycin grabs onto some calcium to switch itself on. That allows its fatty tail to burrow into the bacteria's cell membrane. Then, a bunch of these molecules team up, forming a channel. Basically, they poke a hole. This hole causes a massive leak, and the cell's entire electrical charge just collapses. And here's the kill shot. This instantly stops everything. The bacteria can't make DNA, RNA, or protein anymore. It's literally like someone just walked over and pulled the plug.
And this is what's so fascinating. Most antibiotics work by just blowing the cell up, a process we call lysis. It's messy. But daptomycin is much more precise. As this quote explains, it doesn't cause some violent explosion. It just quietly and very, very quickly shuts down all the life support systems, and the cell just dies. Now, just like any specialized hero, daptomycin has specific bad guys it's amazing at taking down, but it also has a pretty significant weakness, a kryptonite, if you will. This is definitely not a one-size-fits-all kind of drug.
So take a look. On the left, you've got daptomycin's hit list: MRSA, VRE, all those tough gram-positive bugs. But on the right, you see what it can't touch. Gram-negative bacteria like E. coli have this extra outer shell that the drug just can't get through. And you'll notice one other really big one on that ineffective list: pneumonia.
And that brings us to a super important question. If daptomycin is such a powerhouse, why is it completely useless for treating pneumonia, which is a really serious lung infection?
And here it is, the kryptonite. Our lungs produce this substance called pulmonary surfactant. It's essential for us to breathe, but for daptomycin, it's a trap. This surfactant latches onto the drug and just completely shuts it down, making it totally useless before it can even get near the bacteria in the lungs. Okay, but using a weapon this powerful, well, it doesn't come for free. There are risks, and it's absolutely crucial to understand the potential side effects and how doctors manage them to keep everyone safe. The biggest and most unique side effect to watch for is something called myopathy, and that's just a technical term for muscle toxicity. It can cause muscle pain, weakness, and even real damage. It's a serious concern that requires a lot of attention. So, how do we deal with that? This is where monitoring becomes absolutely critical. Patients on daptomycin get their CPK levels checked every single week. CPK is an enzyme that leaks out when muscles are damaged, so by tracking it, doctors can spot a problem really early and stop the drug if they need to.
The good news? The damage is usually completely reversible.
On top of that, there's a huge warning when it comes to other medications. Daptomycin does not play well with a very, very common type of drug.
And that big interaction is with statins. Yep, the cholesterol-lowering drugs that millions of people take. Statins on their own can sometimes cause muscle issues, so when you combine them with daptomycin, the risk of severe muscle damage goes way up. Because of this, it's standard procedure to temporarily take a patient off their statin while they're being treated with daptomycin. So, as we start to pull all this together, it's pretty clear that daptomycin is a vital tool in our arsenal. But the fight against bacteria is never, ever over, and even our strongest defenses are constantly being challenged. And this really highlights the relentless threat we're up against. While it's still pretty rare, some bacteria are already starting to develop resistance to daptomycin. They're actually learning how to change their cell walls to push the drug away. It just goes to show why we have to be so careful and strategic about how we use these powerful antibiotics.
This quote from our source material really just says it all perfectly. Despite the risks, despite its kryptonite, daptomycin is a critically important weapon. For patients fighting off severe infections from superbugs like MRSA and VRE, this drug can literally be the difference between life and death.
And that leaves us with one final and really crucial question to think about. Daptomycin is a last line of defense. For now. But bacteria are always evolving. So what's next? How do we protect these incredible life-saving drugs and make sure we have answers for the superbugs that are coming tomorrow? That's something we all need to be thinking about.